Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Public Works to order. Today is February 20th, and we'll start off with roll call. Clerk?
Alderman Hammond.
Here.
Alderman Schmidt. Here. Alderman Tom Grady. Here. Alderman Ted Grady. Here. Alderman Rapella. Here. Alderman Nichols. Here. Alderman Eisenach. Here. Alderman Sevenik.
Here.
All are present.
Okay, the first item that we have is the minutes to approve. Alderman Schmidt?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Board of Public Works minutes from February 6th of 2023.
Okay.
Motion's been made, and here I'm like waiting for the mayor to say something. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are approved. We have a communication. I had requested this. I had a conversation with Alderman Rapella about he had some constituents concerned about why their street wasn't plowed, and we do have parameters, and I thought this is the best place to not only educate the public but the rest of the council, because there were some areas that I wasn't familiar with. So I believe, Thad, you're here today to help us out with this, and I'll let Laura and Thad take it from here.
Thank you, Chair. So we typically send this out in correspondence on Common Council every winter, just to keep this information fresh and keep it out there. So yes, Alderman Sevenik reaching out did prompt us to add it, and it's kind of perfect timing with some of the snow we're getting. So with that, we do have our Deputy Director of Municipal Operations, Thad Brown, here to get into the details of it. Thank you.
Name and address? No, just kidding.
So with the winter weather, we have obviously have ordinance and stuff that we ask for, but one of the bigger ones that we have that I'd like to say before we start this is the plowing of city driveways into the street or across the street onto the opposite terrace is not allowed. With the snow removal that we ask to do, it leaves windrows and creates hazards when they do that. And then obviously now the other resident, it's going to be harder for them to clear their sidewalk. So that's one that we've been hearing a couple times this year already, so I just wanted to get that one out there. With the mild winter, we haven't had a lot of sidewalk complaints. The ones that we did have went out and then they melted right away, so we didn't have to enforce them, so it's been a pretty good year. But just to remind everyone that we have a 4-foot minimum for your sidewalk removal. If it's not possible to remove, to sprinkle abrasives on there, a salt, a sand mix so it's not slippery. If we do give notices, it's a 24-hour notice for the clearing of the sidewalk, and that's the minimum of the 4 feet sidewalk all the way down. And that was 24 hours, I think you said that. Another thing to help us out with during the winter months is our parking ordinance that we have, and that's from November 1st to March 31st. This is only from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., but if people do notice that we are going to get a storm coming in and it's going to be during the day, kind of try to help us out, not park in the street, allow the plow truck to go by. We're not going to have to come back and clean up windrows going around vehicles and such things like that. So getting into what Stan and Randy were calling on is the code yellow, code blue, and code red. When we're out dealing with snow, it's the blues. We're going to have from a 1/4 inch to 1 inch that we're going to be out maintaining our blues that we have, and that will be through the entire duration of the storm. That is a 1 to 3 inch snow that we would have coming through. The code red is anything over 3 inches.
So Thad, just so you know, I had the clerk bring up the map.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you've seen it, so if you need to address it, and then the camera person can show that.
So looking at this map, we have the three snow emergency routes. It's blue, green, and red. That would be Route 1, Route 2, or Team 1, Team 2, and Team 3. Those are our 3 code blue routes that are maintained through every storm to have the minimal amount of snow and ice during the entire duration of the storm. And that'll be maintained throughout and plowed every time. Our city secondary streets are the ones that are in our ordinance states from 3 inches and above. We do plow them. Anything below, we do not plow them. We would just add abrasives or some salt to that. Right now, we're around 2.5 inches is when we pull the trigger to go out and actually plow. And that depends on obviously the temperature and everything that we have. If it's gonna freeze, we're gonna try to get out there and get that done with a 2.5 instead of the 3 and fight it the rest of the year or the season.
Okay.
Anything else?
So I guess, when people do call and they have why wasn't my street plowed? Let's say I'll grab a random street. What street do you live on, Randy? Okay, so what would be the policy if you had only 2 inches of snow on Southfield? South.
Southfield South? That would be a street that would be maintained as a secondary street. It's not a code blue. So that would be our 3 inches or greater. We would be plowing, otherwise we'd be putting abrasives down.
Okay.
So our code blue streets, another thing that I didn't really touch on is you can reach any code blue street from 3 blocks in any directions. Wherever you are in the city, you won't go more than 3 blocks to hit one of these streets.
And I guess maybe the concern has been is that, hey, Menasha does a great job in snow plowing. Everyone knows that. That's, before Ann talked about distinctions in our communities, that's one that we have in the city of Menasha, is that we do an outstanding job of plowing our streets. And it's been for years. I remember going to meetings in Neenah, and then the Neenah people saying, yeah, I know, as soon as you cross that border, you know that the streets were much nicer in Menasha, and that was a nice compliment that they gave. So maybe that's why some of the questions were coming up is that, we haven't had a whole lot of snow this year, and yes, we've been plowing, but we're probably not out there as much as we have in past years. So that's probably why these issues have been raised. I only received 1 call. I don't know how many Randy has received, but
I just want to add that.
I was going to say, is there anything more that you wanted to add?
Thank you. Yeah, the depths of snow of when we respond to the primaries versus the secondaries is pretty consistent municipality-wide throughout Wisconsin. The League of Wisconsin Municipalities just had an article recently within this past, 4 or 5 months, and their depths were all outlined and fell in line with where we are at. And coming in here, I've been here now 2.5 years and in this position for 1.5 years, coming up on 2. It's very streamlined here. We do an excellent job. Our crews are very responsive, and I've been very impressed with how they've been operating and continue to do so.
And I think I think people realize that too in the city. So, are there any questions? Oh my goodness, who's first? The flashy one?
Yeah.
Okay, Randy.
This is for Thad. Thad, what is the fine? Do you know what the fine is for not shoveling a sidewalk? Do you happen to have that off the top of your
Not
head?
a fine.
It's a minimum of $35, but it depends on what it is, how long it takes, and what equipment we use during the removal.
So minimum of 35.
Correct.
Is that the same for not cutting a lawn as well?
Yes.
Thank you.
Alderman Ted Grady.
Thank you, Chair. I guess my question goes back to the preparation before a storm. I get calls on, okay, they're watering down the streets. I go, well, they're not watering down the streets. They're putting down some salt and brine or whatever you may call it. But a lot of times they put it down and then we never get anything. We never get anything. All I do is have to go to the car washes, which is fine because we have some in Menasha. But my question, my question is, maybe you don't have to answer it now.
That's why we do it.
The cost of that operation prior to a storm, I was always told, well, it's free because it's ours. So I go, well, no, it's not free because we're spending gas, we're spending labor dollars, and I don't know, Thad, you don't have to answer it now, but I'm just, if you can send me an email or an idea what that might cost the city to prep for a storm with the brine laying.
So the last time that we looked at the cost of salt brine, it was around 11 to 13 cents a gallon making it. When we're out with our salt truck, we're putting anything down from 35 to 55 gallons a lane mile. is what we have our truck set for. And that's what you'll see going down the street. This is way less invasive than continuing to put salt down. You're not using as much salt, so it is better for the environment.
Sustainability, right?
Sorry.
Okay,
Go ahead.
are you done?
I don't know. I lost myself.
Well, so much per gallon or whatever, but that does not include the gas for the,
That does not include the gas or the
Okay.
employee putting
Okay.
it down. But it does break the bond, so when we are spraying this,
oh no, I think
it's actually helping us when we do come and plow it off. We're taking more off with it, with putting the salt brine down.
okay, thank you.
All right. Laura?
I just wanted to add with the salt brine, it's becoming more standard practice throughout municipalities. Just looking again, big picture, this is something it is saving on rock salt usage, and the amount is significantly less when brine is utilized
Alderman
prior to a
Rapella.
storm.
Thank you. Thad, two questions. First, with the issues that I had on Christella last year, have you been watching the amount of salt brine or, I guess salt brine that you've been putting down on that street, because many of them did complain about all the dead grass in their terraces, and I know that you were aware of it last year, so.
We are aware of the issue, and we're following our ordinance, and we're treating that as a cold blue street like we treat anything else. If that needed to be changed, that would have to be from you guys.
Okay, all right, so they have dead grass or whatever, possible dead grass again. Okay, I understand.
It's a cold blue street, Randy, and we're doing what the ordinance says.
Right, yeah, I just got phone calls from many of those constituents on that street with that same issue. Also, one more thing, as far as the cutting the lawn, the guy who does my lawn maintenance or put the fertilizer down in my yard, he sends out a flyer, $49 to cut lawn. I'd be better off to have him, to city cut my grass every week than have him cut it.
Why are you putting extra work on the city?
Yeah, right? I mean, they only charge 35, so I think you guys should jack it up a little bit.
That's a minimum
Oh.
of 35, so.
Got it, okay. Yeah, got it, thank you.
If it was you, Randy, it'd be $100. No. Okay, anything further? Thank you, Thad, for taking your time to come here and discuss this. And that was just a discussion item. And I have to get back to, anything further on that then? Seeing none, we'll move on to item E, and this is an action item. And this is to recommend an award. Alderman Schmidt.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to recommend to award contract unit number MCM 09-22-00335 for the sanitary sewer and water main reconstruction in the amount of $784,578.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Laura, would you like to follow up on this?
I would, thank you. So this contract, and I saw Adam Smith was...
Yeah, he's here.
He is here, okay, good. He can speak to the water stuff, but what we did with this contract is we actually worked with Menasha Utilities on doing the utility work together. So in preparation for our road projects for this upcoming year. There's some 9th Street water main. I'll let Adam kind of give some detail on that. But there's going to be some water main on 3rd Street and sanitary sewer on 3rd Street and the Water Street water main and sanitary sewer as well. So the reason in this packet that we have an alternate bid, I just wanted to get into that a little bit. In our base bid for the sanitary sewer, we did include spot repairs on 3rd, because 3rd is not a full reconstruct, it is a rehabilitation project. But what we did is, to see what kind of pricing we would get if we were to do all of the laterals, we went and did an alternate bid on that, and they came in quite favorable. It came in about $2,500 per lateral, which was significantly better than we had when we had to deny that contract last year, the year before, I can't recall when. So we would be recommending to do the entire contract plus the alternate. And then I did also want to outline budgetarily. We had brought to you, I believe it was correspondence on Board of Public Works in January regarding carrying over some sanitary sewer funding and breaking out those numbers, the amount we would need to carry over from 2022 is just shy of $100,000. And we had probably 380 that we could carry over in projects we hadn't I shouldn't say they hadn't completed, but funds we did not fully utilize.
Okay.
So we would consider, when it comes time for carryover, to be carrying that amount over. But otherwise, we are under what we had estimated for this work. So we would recommend proceeding, and then I'll let Adam add into some of the water main work that's anticipated.
Sure. Go ahead, Adam.
Sure. Adam Smith, Menasha Utilities, Water Utility Manager. So yeah, we've been working closely with Public Works to be most efficient and economical for doing these projects together. We did add a little bit of water main replacement on 9th Street, just because of the high volume of main breaks on that street. It's all concrete, so it's been very costly to repair. So that's why we added that little bit that is outside of the city's sanitary and stormwater replacement. As far as the water main portion of this contract, it's within the utilities budget. We will not be borrowing for this project. So it's been nice working with Laura and the DPW as far as trying to stay on a schedule that we're both replacing the road and the infrastructure below it to be most cost effective.
The only question I would have, and it's somewhat related, is that have you had many water main breaks this year? Because it seemed like last year there were quite a few. This year, I don't think I've seen you out.
Yeah, I mean, we've had our fair share, as the weather patterns
Of
we've
course,
had
it's
with
still February, so.
Yeah, exactly. The freezing, thawing, the cold snap before Christmas, and then, getting real warm, that seemed to increase the breakage a little bit. The breakage has been down a little bit this year, but it's just, as we continue to replace our infrastructure, we see fewer and fewer breaks each year.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for coming this evening. Is there anything further from the committee, or? Sure, Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Chairman. Either for Director Youngworth or Mr. Smith, do you have any idea where the contractor might start this work, where they'll stage first?
We do have somewhat of a schedule. We haven't solidified it at this point. It was in the bid docs. As far as the scheduling, typically we look at, schools that would be affected, other businesses, things like, the Racine Street Bridge being out, that's always taken into consideration. So we do notify, the bus lines and all the emergency services in the city before we start, and we do, when we have the pre-construction meeting, we definitely set that schedule.
Okay.
So upon approval with council, this will go to council for approval. And then a pre-construction meeting would be scheduled after that, and we would have to finalize contract documents in the interim as well. So,
Okay, so they're probably a good 6 weeks out from starting, at least?
I would say at least a month.
Okay.
By the time we go through council approval and
right.
finalize contracts and whatnot.
I was only thinking of the Water Street portion of it and being cognizant of all of the things that are happening in that area with the Racine Street Bridge being closed, and I don't want to jinx it, hopefully April's opening day. But with, the bridge being closed and the work on the Bryn and the closures associated with that, the folks on Water Street really struggle to get in and out, in and out, in and out. And so they'll have to deal with this construction this year as well, which they're looking forward to. But if there's any way to be cognizant, just take that into consideration during that pre-construction meeting.
Yeah, we definitely take that into consideration. And we've tried to cause any more congestion in that area.
Thank you.
Just with the lead service line replacements and I know other work that was on Main Street for the Bryn building. So we've definitely been taking that into consideration.
Yeah, thank you. It's much appreciated.
Anything further? Seeing none, we can take a roll call.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you, clerk. Seeing that's approved and we have no further business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made by Alderman Schmidt, second by Alderman Hammond. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Good evening.